And of course, as we've been hearing, that leaked draft opinion from the Supreme Court has the nation on edge, waiting to see if the High Court will overturn the landmark abortion rights case Roe v. Wade. The 1973 ruling recognizes a woman's right to an abortion as a constitutional right. But in his draft opinion, Justice Samuel Alito calls for an outright overturning of that previous decision. Reaction across the country has been swift and heated. Here's what Illinois' senior Senator Dick Durbin had to say.
If it is accurate and it turns out to be authentic, it is a stunning reversal in American history that the court would take away a constitutional right after 50 years.
And joining us to discuss this highly controversial topic are Amory Clefetta, Women's and Reproductive Rights Project Director for the ACLU, Carolyn Shapiro, Professor of Law and founder and co-director of the Institute on the Supreme Court of the United States at Chicago-Kent College of Law, Amy Gerke, Executive Director for Illinois Right to Life, and Peter Breen, Vice President and Senior Counsel for the Thomas More Society. Welcome all of you to Chicago tonight, and thanks for joining us. First, I want to get some reaction to this leak because it is unprecedented for two reasons. Carolyn, let's start with you briefly, please.
So this has never happened before, certainly in modern times, that an entire draft opinion has leaked. We occasionally have had leaks related to the outcome of a case or deliberations about a case, but never before an entire draft opinion. Peter,
your thoughts?
Absolutely. This is it's a betrayal of trust that they have to be. Look, the justices, Republican, Democrat appointed, it doesn't matter. They've got to be able to work together in some measure of confidence. And as Carolyn said, you've never seen a whole opinion. You get little bits and pieces, and usually after the fact, you might get a tell-all book 10 years later, but never like this. Real attack on the court, and it's a crime, as I understand it, under federal law as well.
And Amory, what do you think?
I agree that the leak is unprecedented, and I know we all have a lot of questions and curiosity about it, but I don't think that we should let that take away from what is the really important issue here, which is that the Supreme Court appears poised to take away constitutional rights that half this country has had for 50 years.
And Amy Gerke.
It was absolutely egregious, and as others have said, it's a complete betrayal of trust and really sets a dangerous precedent of how things will work with the court in the future.
Carolyn, how telling is a draft decision about a ruling and how that ruling will ultimately go later on when it's released?
Well, we can't know for sure. We can't know for sure whether the ultimate decision will be revised to some extent from the draft that we have all read today and last night. We can't know for sure if it will even in the end have 5 votes to make a majority. But it seems highly unlikely to me that this draft was written without the expectation of 5 votes, by which I mean, I think at conference, there were 5 justices who said they were willing to overrule Roe versus Wade outright, which it's important to note is not a necessary outcome, even if the court wants to uphold the law that's at issue in this case, which is a law from Mississippi that outlaws abortion starting at 15 weeks of pregnancy. Other leaks are that Chief Justice Roberts would prefer to just uphold that law but not reach this big question of overruling Roe versus Wade. But I have to say, I am not at all surprised that this appears to be where the Supreme Court is headed. This has been the project of decades of effort on the part of the conservative legal movement. And the justices who are the likely 5 have long since signaled their opposition to Roe, regardless of what they may have said at their confirmation hearings.
Peter Breen, what is the legal argument that Justice Samuel Alito makes in this, again, in a draft? This is not a done deal yet.
And it does, based off of the oral argument, pretty much everybody who listened to that oral argument said, boy, it sounds like 5, maybe 6, to certainly uphold the Mississippi law, possibly to overrule Roe v. Wade. The way, the opinion has been confirmed as, it is a true draft opinion coming from Justice Alito, appears to have the support of 5 justices. He really does, he puts in there everything you would expect him to. to Carolyn's point, Justice Roberts wants to do he kind of wanted to do uphold Mississippi's law but not overturn Roe, and Justice Alito early on in the opinion says, well, Solicitor General and the more abortion side said, hey, there's no middle ground. You either get all or nothing. And so that's
and the Mississippi Attorney General also asked to have Roe overruled.
Right. And so that's if I'm drafting that opinion, I'm Justice Alito. I'm going to put that in there. He also put in things, clearly stating that they're not looking to overturn gay marriage. They're not looking to overturn anything else. It's very, they said very specifically the abortion right is different because this is, involves another human life. And so all of that, you look at all the parts of the pieces of the opinion, it reads like kind of the standard thing you would expect to overturn Roe v. Wade, where if you're on my side of the thing, that's what you'd put in there. You'd show why stare decisis shouldn't apply here. And so that was a pretty, it looks like how it should look if you're looking at overturning Roe.
Anne-Marie, if that should happen, how might that affect, communities who may already lack access to certain medical services, particularly marginalized communities, low income, women of color, LGBTQ?
To be very clear, that is what is so upsetting about this. We already know that there are 26 states across the country that are poised to ban abortion if Roe is overturned. And the burden of those abortion bans in those states is going to be felt the hardest by people who already face systemic barriers to accessing health care. They are Black women who already live in places where maternal mortality rates are terrible. There are people who are already struggling to make ends meet. There are people who are vulnerable for a whole host of reasons. And those are the people who are going to feel this the most when states start banning abortion en masse after a decision in Dobbs.
And can I just jump in and say, I really think that there's a lot of language in this opinion that does indicate that issues like gay marriage, rights like gay marriage, the right to have private consensual sex with another adult are entirely vulnerable. What the opinion says is that the only unenumerated rights that the court will respect are those that are, quote, deeply rooted in history and tradition, which the court then the draft then goes on to define in a very, very narrow way. And actually lists as examples of cases that do not live up to that standard. Obergefell, which granted the marriage equality, and even Loving versus Virginia, which overruled bans on
which made interracial marriage legal. Yeah, I want to keep it going, and thank you for jumping in, Carolyn. Peter, there has been talk
we can't. I'm sorry, but the idea that Justice Clarence Thomas, who is a Black man married to a white woman, would vote for something that would undermine interracial marriage is outrageous. And in the fact, there's a 2-page long footnote back of the opinion. You got to keep reading all the way through it, where they specifically cite Obergefell, so that's the gay marriage decision, as support for doing this. So, and very clearly throughout the opinion, you can see where Justice Alito put in there, and I understand what he's doing. He's saying, look, you can't apply this to any of these other cases. He ends with it at the end of the opinion, very clearly to carve that out, because Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Barrett, we don't know where they stand on those other issues, and he didn't want to get into that fight right now.
And Peter, I want to get Amy in here as well. So Mayor Lori Lightfoot, she spoke about this today as well, and here she is.
It is despairing moment, depressing moment, I will say, but unfortunately not a surprising moment. Too many things in our country have become highly politicized, and now we know with absolute certainty that the U.S. Supreme Court is one of those entities.
Amy Gerke, what would abortion access look like if Roe is overturned?
Well, unfortunately in Illinois, nothing really would change. Our laws here, the Reproductive Health Act, the repeal of parental notice of abortion, are so far out of the mainstream and completely protect abortion. And the abortion industry has actually been preparing for this, building large clinics on our borders with Wisconsin, Indiana, and Missouri to bring women to our state to have abortions. And it's really tragic, but because of our laws, the repeal of parental notice of abortion, young girls can come here and their parents won't even know that they're having an abortion, allowing sexual predators to cover their crimes with abortion, which we know happens. And the Reproductive Health Act has actually made abortion very dangerous for women in our state. It removed abortion clinics under the umbrella of ambulatory surgical centers, so they basically regulate themselves. Coroners are no longer required to investigate women's deaths at abortion clinics. So yes, our abortion numbers will increase, but it's very tragic for the women, not only here in Illinois, but in our neighboring states and beyond, because it is so very dangerous here.
Okay.
You know, I think there's so much to respond to in that statement, but I'll just say this, that among other things that the logic of this opinion leads to is that certain forms of birth control can and undoubtedly will be outlawed in certain states, things like IUDs, some forms of the pill that prevent implantation of an embryo, and even assisted types of reproductive health care like IVF, which leads to the creation of embryos that then are not implanted, may be outlawed, and that there's nothing in the logic of this opinion that would say that that is problematic.
Okay, so obviously a lot to dissect. We are out of time. My thanks to our guests for joining us: Carolyn Shapiro, Anne-Marie Cliffetta, Amy Gerke, and Peter Breen.
Thank you.
Thank you.